Welcome to the Beyond Anxiety podcast, where we talk about dismantling mental health stigmas, mental health awareness through education, and strategies for overcoming mental health challenges. I'm your host, Darius Fennell, and I'm a mental health and therapy advocate, published author, speaker, and coach. I'm so glad you decided to tune in and listen, and I'm so excited to get into this next episode. Welcome, and please like, subscribe, follow, comment, and enjoy. All right, and welcome back to season 2 of the Beyond Anxiety podcast. I'm your host, Darius Fennell, and I have a special guest with me, Miss Natolie Warren, who is a speaker, wellness expert, retreat host, breath facilitator, very interested in that, and corporate trainer, life coach, psychotherapist, who's been in her own practice and in the field for over 20 years. Thank you for agreeing to being on the show. I'm delighted to have you on here, and I would like for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you've come into the field of mental health.
Yes, thank you, Darius, for having me first. Wow, you said many of the things that I get to do, so I'll share more of who I am.
Okay. Dinner.
I am truly a creative, so I absolutely love creating things. When I was younger, Darius, I created things by writing, and now I get to create experiences for particularly women, but I also do a lot of brave men as well. So I get to do that. I am intuitive, so just having the ability to hear my inner voice and use that gift to help people in the work that I do. And I actually love silence. I am a person that absolutely loves silence. I hadn't always liked silence, but
Wow.
in the work that I do and in my personal just being able to recharge, silence is a favorite of mine. I'm a proud mom, so I have 3 little people and I'm
Yeah.
married. So that
Yes.
tells me a little bit about how I get to do what I do, since you mentioned some of the titles that I carry. But ultimately, I am all things personal development. I'm all about inner healing work and really supporting people live the best life that they were intended to have.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Wow. There are so many places we could go. I want to start with the silence thing. I was going to start with stigmas, but I want to start on the silence because I don't want to forget about it as we get into the show. But you mentioned about how it can be one of the more challenging things. And I found that to be true for myself until I came into kind of they call the nervous system dysregulation.
Mhm.
I was so overstimulated that silence was definitely like a go-to.
Mhm.
In your practice and even maybe in your personal life, have you found it to, and I think you did mention earlier about it being like somewhat challenging, but is that something you have recognized and seen in others and in practice?
Absolutely, absolutely. The challenge with being silent is when you get quiet, the noise in your head gets really loud. And
Mm,
many of us, unfortunately, our brain is wired to lean towards the negative. So I'm now listening to the stuff that oftentimes is negative or it's critical. And so we want to avoid it. We want to create noise, whether that is external noise, internal noise, because it can be overwhelming.
yeah.
So I've seen that in my work. I've seen it in my own life. But I also found the beauty in it, which is when you're able to sit in that space, there's a peace, there's a calm, there's a reset that can happen when you're able to hear your inner voice and not just the critical one, but the one that's calm and guiding and wise. You get to hear that voice as well.
Wow. Yeah, that I remember with my first therapist, that was one of the things that she really helped me to do is like slow down. And
Mhm.
I am a natural introvert just
Mhm.
by nature, but I have been very ambitious. And when you're driven by just multiple number of things, sitting in silence feels like boring, or
Right.
you feel like you could be productive. Or
Mhm.
to me, it more helped to recognize where I was getting my sense of worth from, as well
Mhm.
as what I was suppressing. And so when
Mhm.
you talked about it, the voices and just different really programs and patterns that can be in your mind and also the body become very, very loud when, your body kind of tells you, yeah, we're taking a time out and you're going to have to sit or things are going to get worse. So that's something
Right.
you've also seen within the field where you see that struggle, but then you finally see that person have the light bulb moment that this is kind of the one of the beginning paths to healing and recovery.
Yes, I agree. As I heard you say that, I thought about not only is it the negative thoughts that we may have, it's also the unpleasant emotional experiences that we may have. And combating that belief that I am unproductive, that I'm lazy. If I'm sitting still, we're conditioned to be busy. And like you mentioned, it's tied to our worth. But when we are able to find that space, we can learn because the thoughts are coming so fast. The emotional experiences, we have about 400 of them every day. Most people don't even realize that.
400?
400 emotional experiences every day. When you're able, though, to slow it down, you can notice it. You can actually challenge the thoughts. So it gives you a power that you didn't realize you had because it was so noisy and chaotic.
Yeah, one of the lessons to piggyback on that was understanding, like, the emotions and the feelings were messengers.
Mhm.
Again, having that co-requisite of being quiet, giving yourself the time to understand, okay, what is actually behind this? I'm fighting this symptom or these words, but
Mhm.
that's not the only thing. There's something else underneath that. And it brings
Mhm.
me to another topic where
Mhm.
journaling has been
Mm.
extremely helpful with managing the thoughts. When you talked about challenging, my first therapist had me do an exercise where she just said, "Look, go back in time." Because I think I had one of those weeks where it was just, you have a setback, but in the
Mhm.
beginning of healing, you feel like a setback means you have to start all the way from zero. But you find out later
Right.
on that's not true.
Right.
But you need a reference point to say, well, what evidence do I have that I'm not starting from zero? Well, you got the
Mhm.
journal. So she was like, go
Mhm.
back a few months. And I went and I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, it's not so bad.
Wow.
There were certain limitations I saw in the journal to where I am now and looking maybe a week ago, like you've made a lot of progress. So a few steps
Mhm.
back isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just time to
Yes, yes, and I love that you shared that because most people don't realize that they're not going all the way back, but and should I say that they have a tool that if they go back, they can get back. You know what I mean? Like you could see the journal as a tool to move forward. And I think that's beautiful because most of us, when we're in those situations, our brain forgets. I often say to people, don't take credit for what your brain does. Your brain forgets that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And you have that as a reminder, which is beautiful.
yeah. And it reminds me of the other thing that I couldn't stand it in the beginning. Like I appreciate it now. But my therapist will always say, okay, let's pause here. And I'm like, I don't want to pause. I want to get away from this stuff. Like, okay, I finally managed the courage to actually talk about these different feelings and emotions. And you're saying, let's hit the pause button and let's just feel our emotions. I don't want to do
Mm.
that. I'm already a highly sensitive person or considered an empath. So I feel it 5 times more than everybody else. So I'm trying to like, punt it like a football and get rid of the thing. And she's like, nope.
Yes.
Have you ever found in practice that, and this is where I feel like a good therapist will or a counselor will help with pacing the recovery
Mm.
journey because I wanted to rush through everything. Is that something that you've also seen in practice where somebody, they have the good intention of wanting to get better, but fighting the process of where things just take time, of maybe where you're having to undo 30 or 40 years of a pattern and you're trying
Right.
to undo it in a matter of a few weeks, right?
Right, or seconds. They go seconds. I find it interesting, and I'm on the journey, so I'm also saying this as a person on the journey, right? Because the idea, and I see it as they'll say, Darius, okay, that's the problem. Now, how we gonna fix it? Like that is the next step. How we gonna fix it? Not understanding that, as you said, we've got to sit in some of this so we can learn from it. Here's a beautiful truth here. If we actually experienced our emotions, the intensity of that feeling will only last about 90 seconds. If we sit with it and experience it, why it intensifies is because we're doing what you just mentioned. We're trying to get rid of it. We're trying to suppress it. We're trying to deny it. We do all of these other things, and that's what intensifies it. But if we just allowed it to be, it'll be about 90 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing the other aspect of talking about the different things during, I'll at least say in some of my sessions, was how my body started to react. And this
Mm,
is a good segue into the breath work, which I'm very, very interested in
mhm.
because there's so many different methodologies for doing breath work, right? There's so many different names, and I've seen
Right.
some where people seem like they were just making up stuff, right? 3 by 3 by 3, the 4 by 4 by 4, 4 7 8, the 7 11, box breathing, all that stuff.
Right.
What I found amazing was in the beginning, when I was dysregulated, 4 7 8 made me feel like I was dizzy, and it actually made me
Mm,
feel worse. And
mm.
so in those early years, I couldn't use it. But then
Wow.
ironically, 2 years ago, I was using 7-Eleven, and I had like a
Mm,
little, setback, and that thing was magical. I would say within maybe 3 days,
mm.
I was seeing noticeable differences, not like the
Wow.
placebo. Oh, like I've convinced myself. I'm like, no, like my heart palpitations have decreased. I don't feel the same reaction to stress like I did before.
Mm,
But yeah, can you just get into the whole like breath work thing? And oh, the story I was telling was my counselor, my therapist was helping me to talk about an issue, and it was more so related to anger, and my body started to just react. And
mm.
actually, I felt hot. And I said, is it hot in here? She said, no. I was like, can I take off my hoodie? Yeah, go ahead.
Wow.
And I'm getting more fidgety. I was like, can I stand up? She's like, yeah,
Mm,
just whatever helps you relax and open up and talk. Go ahead and do that. Next thing you know, I start pacing. And she said,
wow.
oh, no, no. Okay. I see what's happening.
Mm,
Have a seat. We're going to do some breath work with scanning. And at the
mm.
time, I didn't know what that was. And I didn't
Wow.
know how I was going to get home because I was so dysregulated. I felt very just, I just wanted to
Tight.
fight. I wanted to fight the air
Yes.
like Cuba Gooding Jr. in Boys in the
Yes.
Hood. I'm thinking, man, how am I gonna like relax? And so she said, sit down. We sat. I sat and slowed the breath down,
Mm,
breathe from the belly and not from the chest. And then
right.
she had me come almost like do like a photocopy from the top of my head down to my toes and then back up
Mm,
again, just in a very relaxed way. At first, I'm like, what is this gonna do? Like, we're just breathing.
right.
And then after about, I don't know, I say about 60 to a minute and a half, I
Mm,
felt myself calm down. I was like, whoa, like that actually
mm,
worked.
right.
And now I feel like I have another tool because I can do this on my own. Like that wasn't fancy. There was another
Mm.
aspect, and I also want to ask you about this. I was worried about like a mystical kind of Eastern,
Like, what's gonna
religion.
happen to me?
Something that something's gonna the heebie-jeebies gonna jump on
Right.
me and make me,
Spooky.
yeah, make me slobber or something. But before I started reading about all the science behind it and the vagus nerve and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah, please, I know I threw a lot of stuff at you, but it's very exciting because it was one of the first tools that helped me to just be calm in a time
Mm,
where I would wake up dysregulated. And from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, I was just on level 20. And that
right.
first breath work helped to like, I was like, oh, I can be normal.
Yes.
So
I can
please.
control it. No, I love that you shared that. Here's what I heard you say first, which I think is important for people to understand. The body will speak what the mind's not ready to process. So in that moment, your body was speaking what your mind wasn't ready to process. And you listened, which is the beautiful thing, right?
And my
But a part
therapist
of
helped me too.
Right, but a part of that was probably some of the work of you slowing down and pacing and monitoring your thoughts, you journaling. It led you to a point where you said, "I'm noticing I'm getting hot." Those were all cues that your body was speaking, which is beautiful, right? Because
Yeah.
I think that's why breath work is also helpful because it slows us down and it gets us in tune with what's happening in the moment. So that was what I want to share first, that the body speaks
Okay.
what the mind's not ready. And I love that you had to learn how your system was, set up because most people don't realize when we do breath work, if we're really regulated, there's some patterns that will make us more dysregulated
Mhm.
and more activated, and that won't feel supportive, right?
Right.
And so we through breath work, when I teach it and guide people through it, we're gonna titrate your system is what we call that, to just see what does your system like and want. And people will normally be able to identify, "Mm-mm, I didn't like that." Or they'll be
Right.
like, "Oh, that felt really good." Like your system will tell you, which is the beautiful part of it. So we
Yeah.
titrate the system just to see what's happening. And then we make adjustments to the pattern that you do,
Mhm.
given what your system tells us you need.
Yes.
So it's just this really, really, really powerful thing that can happen. Now, as you also say, people start their brain starts turning when they start doing new stuff.
Yeah.
And then you come afraid and you're scared and you're back dysregulated, right? All the stuff that you were trying to get away from.
Yes.
But once you lean into it, I believe, just as you said, it's one of the most powerful self healing tools that's available. It's a
Yes.
tool that you always have with you, that you don't run out of,
Yep.
right? That you don't have to worry about forgetting it. It
Right.
is your
Hope
companion
you
for
don't.
life, right? It's your companion for life. It's the first thing you take and the last thing that you take.
Mm.
The breath is always with you. So I really, really appreciate this conversation around it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That, and, there's all types of apps, and if you know, I think some of them, like, I use Headspace or used to use Headspace.
Mhm.
I need to cancel my membership because they getting free money out of me, but you can even go on YouTube and find, videos that do, breath work, and what I found amazing is you don't have to do it for a long time. That was the other kind of misconception where I was like, "Am I supposed to
Right.
sit here for, like, a half an hour and do this with my
Right.
my fingers, or do I have to lay a certain way?" It didn't
Right.
matter as long as I would sit still long enough for and this is kind of another superpower that I feel like is underrated, is having yourself in the present moment,
Mhm.
right?
Which is
Because
the breath.
yes, which is the absolutely is the breath,
Mhm.
and it helped take my mind off the kind of one of the root issues in anxiety, which is trying to predict
Right.
anticipating,
Right.
stuff that may or may not happen, and most of the time it doesn't happen, but, like, you're trying to
Mhm.
prepare for the worst, and I know one of the other tools was cognitive behavioral therapy that
Mm.
really helped, especially in the area of cognitive distortions.
Right.
And the catastrophic thinking was like my daily
Mhm.
go-to. Even as a child, I was referred to as a doomsayer because I would
Mm.
always think of the worst case scenario and say, "Man, what if that happens?" And they were like, "There he goes again, doomsayer, thinking of the worst." But it's just when I was diagnosed in 2018 with generalized anxiety disorder, I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, now it all makes sense why I've kind of had these different patterns." And so
Right.
I think one of the other benefits that I've gotten out of going to therapy and just walking the pattern is being able to put a label on something. So number
Mm.
one, I'm not crazy, right?
Right.
And there are certain protocols that you can do when you have a certain label. Like these are your options. Um,
Mhm.
when I was sent home from the hospital after having week-long tests from a panic attack and my heart and blood pressure all over the place, I was sent
Mhm.
home the same way that I came there. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know what to do now. And the only thing they told me was follow up with your primary care physician. Like, I may not be able to see them for a few weeks. Not like you can just
Wow.
call them up and hey, come in here tomorrow, unless it's like really, you know, drastic. At that case, you stay in the hospital then.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have a playbook. I didn't know what to do. And that was kind of my breaking point where I said, okay, I need to go and talk with somebody and really, as a man, just say, hey, are you going to be willing to be vulnerable and humble yourself to go through uncharted territory, recognizing that everything you've done up to this point has not worked and is not working?
Mhm. Mhm.
Are you willing to give up the control?
Right.
And at that point, I was like, you know what? If you told me to do a backflip, I'll do it. If that would help,
Mhm.
I absolutely would do it because I was in such a debilitated state that my quality of life was horrible. But, and this is kind of another good segue into the stigmas, I didn't have to go down that road.
Right.
I probably about 6 months before that, the therapist I ended up going to see,
Mhm.
I already had them on slate through my employee, assistance, programs.
Okay.
All I had to do was hit the button and schedule, and I was like, "I'm good. I'm not gonna do it." 6 months
Wow.
later,
Wow.
I'm like, the regret kicks in now, right? man,
Mhm,
if I just scheduled this, like, would I have you're gonna experience something. Would it have been this bad had I gone when I was supposed to? So
mhm,
in your experience, like, what types of stigmas have you seen? And what do you think is kind of necessary other than a crisis mode that I had to go through for
mhm.
people to kind of have that moment, that light bulb moment, and go get the help that they need?
Yeah, and I definitely hear it takes courage to ask for help. It takes courage to admit that I am not able to do it on my own. So I think one of the stigmas that goes with that is this idea that we should be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
We're taught in messaging, you know what, figure it out. Go figure it out. Our parents might tell us that when we're younger.
Yep.
Go figure it out. You can do it. And so we take that on as our responsibility. Now, that becomes the stigma that gets in the way that I'm not strong enough. Like something is wrong with me because I should be strong enough to be able to handle X, Y, and Z. And that's not true.
Yeah.
When we think about things like anxiety, depression, we think about bipolar, so many diagnoses, many of them have nothing to do with a personal weakness.
Yep.
There could be a biochemical change in the brain, there could be life that happens. I am aware after 20 years of being in the field, one day can change my life. And I
Yes.
could very well be in the space where I needed that type of support. So I say that to say it's nothing wrong with you. And I think that is a stigma, right? Something's wrong with me. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I say to my clients. There's nothing wrong with you. There are
Right.
things that we're going to work on to help you to get better, but at the core of who you are, there's nothing wrong. Other stigmas, though, from family and culture, the idea of we don't tell people our business,
Mm,
we keep it to ourselves, we keep it in the
yes.
family. We have history and trauma of secrets within families and culture,
Mm,
intergenerational trauma, I think about. So some of this isn't our fault,
yeah.
but those become stigmas that we don't talk about it. There are many. The idea that it's a they problem is another stigma I find
Mm,
out, like it's they. When
mhm.
in reality, we all have mental health. Just like we all have physical health,
Yes.
we all have mental health, and at any given moment, we're all on the spectrum. That spectrum could be
Yes.
good, that spectrum could be poor, that spectrum could be severe. But that is a part of also the stigma, like, it's not something I have, it's something that someone else may have, but the truth
Right.
is, we all have it.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my past guests, he said, "Man, we're all crazy a little bit somewhere," you know. And
Mhm.
I'm just
There's
like,
some
"Yep,
dysfunction.
definitely." And I was talking with actually a coworker earlier today, and I was like, "You know what? If you broke your arm, you wouldn't have any issue with going to the emergency room, getting an
Right,
X-ray, confirming how bad it is, and likely having to have a cast for a few weeks until it heals up." And I was like, "Why is the mind so much,
right,
different?
right.
Why should it be any different?" This is my shameless plug for my book, Leaving Jupiter, Navigating Your Anxiety Recovery, where
Yes.
I talk about three big stigmas. You don't want to be labeled as weak, lazy, or,
Mm,
or crazy.
mhm,
I Gen Xer here, younger Gen
mhm.
Xer. Like I barely made the cut, but I'm
I
definitely getting there.
understand.
But I remember when I was in fourth grade, I had a really bad head injury and I had to go to the hospital. And I was in the kids area, and my roommate was in there,
Mm,
and I didn't know why he was there. And I've got tubes and stuff connected to me, and they're taking me in and out, running tests and doing this and that. And thank God everything checked out. But I remember watching him the whole time. Like I haven't seen anybody like take his temperature or
mm,
unwrap a bandage on his arm or check, to see if something is broke. And I asked one nurse, I said, "Why is he in here?" I mean, he was in there playing video games, eating pancakes, and like he was having a good time. Like they still feed me
wow.
liquid diet. I'm like, I want to eat what he's eating. Like he's having
Right.
fun. And the lady told me, said, "No, he's depressed." I was like, "You can go to the hospital for being sad?" This was
Wow.
1988. So, the thinking, especially during those times, and even in my own, fourth grade mind about like mental health or having to need help or having to go to the hospital, to me
Mhm.
meant that there was something severely wrong with you. Like you
Right.
would only do that in severe cases where, I mean, you were literally just inconsolable. and just on the edge of life at that point. That's what I
Mhm.
thought back then that, okay, that's when you go. But, in hindsight, I'm like, sometimes the slightest thing, I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Let me go ahead and start another round of sessions up and
Right. Right. Let me get my tune up. Yes.
just low maintenance. You take your car to get the oil change. Hey, let
Yes.
me come in, or sometimes just different support groups you can go to. Or I just finished up an anxiety group coaching program with somebody
Mhm.
who I met through social media. They're a licensed clinician, and
Mhm.
it was a good group environment, and everybody was kind of able to share. Like it's funny, like when you're watching each other talk, we're not laughing at each other. It's like you're laughing because it's like, oh my gosh, like I identify, and
Right.
everything you're talking about was reminding me of like the different struggles that I've had to
Right.
deal with or go through, you know,
Right.
and some of the symptoms can be like, you would not necessarily think it's connected to anxiety, like my body feeling hot.
Right.
I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, Lord, thinking, why would she turn the heat on during our session?
Right.
Like, you
Right.
knew I was coming, right?
It's
Right. Me in here sweating. I'm like, is this like a tactic to make me be honest? If I'm sweating, I'm hot, and I'll talk more. All this is going through
all
my head.
that's going through your head.
So a good segue into what types of symptoms have you seen in the field that maybe aren't necessarily obvious that there is a mental health issue?
I appreciate that question. I think you said some of them, which is the bodily symptoms. Most of them we don't make the connection to. Tightness in the chest, digestive issues. That's
Mm,
one that doesn't get addressed a lot. There's a lot of research on the gut as the second brain.
mhm,
Those with anxiety, depression may have challenges with their gut. But I find other things like procrastination. Oftentimes that one gets overlooked and misunderstood, right? Misunderstood, but procrastination could be speaking to something.
mhm,
Indecisiveness is another one that I think of that sometimes we don't think of. We don't make the connection that that very well could be speaking to our state. Overspending. Sometimes
mhm.
that one gets overlooked, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're looking for ways to cope, and
Mm,
that might be a way you're trying to cope and not even realize the spending habits are tied to potentially something with our mental wellness or health. I think of relationship challenges, the inability to hold healthy relationships or attracting those that are not healthy for us.
mm,
Could very well speak to some of these things. So there are some of those are the first that come to mind when I think about things we might overlook and not actually associate with our mental health.
yeah, those as you're rattling those off, I'm just like, yeah, yep, yep, yep,
Mhm.
yep. So,
Yeah.
and this is why I advocate so hard for therapy, because the deep-rooted issues, especially shame, that's a big one,
Mhm.
is not
Mhm.
something I feel like you can navigate on your own, right?
Right.
A lot of stuff you can't navigate, but that one is a big one.
Right.
Like, that one, I would even say during the session, that was probably one of the root things that was being, rattled when I started getting
Mhm.
hot and pacing the room.
Right.
We started with anger, but then we started to dig into shame. My body was like, "Hey, that's too much.
You get too close.
Too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, stop now. We'll can maybe try next session, but right now we don't feel safe. We letting you know. We gearing you up
Right.
to get out of here."
Right. 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 It's a protective mechanism. I mean, what people don't realize is shame is what we consider a soul eating emotion. It eats
Mm,
at the soul of you because it tells you that something is wrong with you or that you're missing something.
mm,
And you when you're in shame, when you're, not understanding it, it will just eat at the soul of you. And so you can't see it because you believe, as I have as well, that something is wrong with me or I'm missing something. And so getting support specifically around shame is helpful because it gives it a voice. And then you can recognize, wait a minute, that's not me. That's the voice of shame.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I feel like, is a root of a lot of emotional dysregulation and other problems that are there. And
Mhm.
even some of the books that I read, I was like, wow, this is really heavy. Like, I
Mhm.
feel good about gaining knowledge about this, but I really feel like I need someone to kind of be a coach and a guide. Number one for pacing, because that's, I've always, if I can see the solution, I feel like I'm supposed to get there
Mm.
like this,
Right, that
it does not
right.
work that way. Even with what do you call that? Exposure exercises, right?
Mhm,
There was a time where I was deep in agoraphobia. I could not
mhm,
leave the house unless I absolutely had to, and it was torture. And it
mhm,
got to the point where I was like, man, I got to get out of this, and just going back to my old kind of engineering and, high school sports mentality was like, hey man, like you gotta fight this thing, right?
tough up, yeah.
And not realizing you're feeding the monster, you know,
Mhm,
and it just got to the point where there were several times where I tried to go outside the limitations of what my body could do, and it quickly let me know, "Hey, that really
mhm.
wasn't a good idea, so you may wanna make a phone call, or you have to
Wow,
sit here for a little while until we figure out if it's safe or not."
wow,
You know? So
wow.
there's, like, this saying that healing is not linear. It absolutely is
Mhm,
not, and I've had to,
mhm.
like, find that out the hard
Right.
way. Have you found, like, in the field that some of the clients have gotten really discouraged because of the dips that come along with the recovery process?
Yeah, I have. It becomes as if we feel like we've graduated and it should never come up again.
Right.
Right? It should never come up again. But here's what I usually offer them. It's usually an opportunity for one or two maybe things. When it comes back around again, it is because you're ready for another level of healing,
Mm,
right? We only will receive what we're ready for.
yes.
So it is likely that it's coming back around because there's another level of healing you're ready for. So that's the beauty of it. Or here's the other option, it's coming back around because it's an opportunity for you to see how much you've grown.
Mm,
You can't see your growth if it's not challenged, right?
yes.
That moment where you recognize, hey, I feel like I'm going backwards. And then you had an opportunity to say, well, maybe I'm not going back so far. Here's how I've grown. If you didn't have that resistance, you wouldn't have seen the growth.
Yes.
And so when they go into that kind of cycle, we're going, wait a minute, here's two possibilities. Let's consider a different thought. And usually, if they've been open to it in the past, they'll be able to entertain that new thought that either it's I'm ready for another level or this is showing me just how much I've grown. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is so good. I had a relapse back in 2023,
Hmm.
and because I had been through, I think it was like 5 years of therapy at the time, as well as just the different tools and things that I had learned that worked for me when
Hmm.
I had an awareness of what was happening. Unlike the first time, like I thought I was
Right.
dying. Like I honestly thought I was having a heart attack. 'Cause I'm like, why is
Right.
my heartbeat beating this fast? Why is my chest this tight? Why do I feel like, I mean, I've never had a blast of adrenaline like that before, and it
Mm.
wasn't going down. I'm like, is this it? Am I, am
Right.
I,
Right.
are these my final hours?
Right.
But 5 years later, when the relapse occurred, I knew exactly what was happening. I said, oh, okay. I've gone past the limit of what my body is capable of doing.
Hmm.
My brain wasn't ruminating like it was in the past because I had the tools that I needed to use, and I
Okay.
used them. And what was funny was my therapist at the time said, "I'm fearful that you're starting to spiral."
Mm.
And you mentioned something earlier where I felt so far detached from what had happened to me 5 years prior to that. I was like, "Oh man, I'm good."
Mm.
Like I'm coming to therapy every week. I'm doing the work. I'm doing the things. I'm all right. But as she's listening as a third party person and recognizing the patterns, like, no, you're really not. And
Mm.
so I think like 2 weeks later, I called and I was like, can we kind of do a non-scheduled therapy session? Because
Mhm.
remember you said you thought I was spiraling? I was like, yeah, I had an
Yeah.
incident and I want to talk about it, you know?
Right. Right.
And but rather than it taking 4 years to recover, it was really a few weeks of doing certain adjustments.
Mm.
And we sat down and talked about the different components that led to that spiral. where
Right.
I didn't have that necessarily in the beginning. And so
Mm.
it's not, hey, will I ever have a challenge in my mind and body again? You will. You live long enough. Like there are
Right.
external things that are way out of your control.
Right.
You get a phone call, your boss calls you in for a
Right.
meeting that you didn't expect. Any of those things can happen, but and your body's going to respond in some form of fashion. But you have
Right.
now a choice to say, all right, let me listen to see what's going on in here and check in with myself. And then are there any types of tools that I could use? Or am I overwhelmed to the point where I need to get additional help?
Right.
Didn't do that before.
Right.
Now I'm a little bit wiser to say, you know what? I know where my limitations are, and it's okay if I can't get through this by myself.
Right. Yes, you saw your growth. I think that is exactly what you had, and you had tools in the toolbox that you could apply that you didn't have before.
Yeah. I was
So I think
ready.
that's a part of, yeah, I think that's a part of that journey, for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes me think about where I was 5 years ago and the folks who I forgot who I was talking to, but they said something, and I was like, "Man, let me share what I went through." There was a
Mhm.
guy who I was trying to talk to him about therapy. I was at some It was some mental health convention, like, up north, and he came around to my booth, and I was just sharing him my story, whatever. He's like, "Ah, I tried that therapy, but I'd rather work out in the gym."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, what happens if you get injured and you can't do that anymore?" You
Mm.
know? Like, "Listen, I know you're gonna do whatever you're gonna decide," but I said, "But just think about giving therapy another try,
Mm.
because that's one aspect of a tool for recovery or coping, but there's no magic bullet. There's no one thing that's just gonna fix
Right.
everything." And sometimes the body is just overwhelmed and
Right.
it's going to get your attention. It's been trying to get your attention.
Mhm.
And when you decide you go a long period of time and don't listen, then we bring out the big guns and really,
Right, to get your attention. And I think it's a protective mechanism, right? A survival thing. Yeah.
yeah. So it really, I'm a lot more, I have a lot more empathy towards like folks when I hear about different challenges that they go through. Where before I was just like, man, just take a little time to recover. And it was almost like a race car. It comes into the pit. They quickly
Mhm.
change the tires, they refuel it, and you go back
Sit
on
it
the
back.
track, you know, until there's a point where you burn the engine, and now it doesn't matter what maintenance you try to do, like, you
Right.
need to overhaul now,
Right.
and, you know, it's not gonna be fast, and that's one of the things that just it bothered me. I'm like, "Why can't I remember coming to therapy with my journal, and I'm
Mhm.
literally just like, "Alright, now what? Okay, I got the
Mhm.
book that you told me to get. I'm doing
Mhm.
exercises. Can you give me 3 more things?" And she literally looked at me like
Mhm.
this, and she just said, "It
Right.
doesn't work that way." And I'm like,
Right.
"Why not? Everything else
You
does.
said, "Just give me
Everything
the
else."
formula." Yes.
That's all I wanted. But now I have appreciation for the quiet. I have appreciation for things slowing down. And ironically, one of the things that
Mhm.
really helped with that was
Mhm.
COVID-19.
Yes. COVID did it for us, didn't it?
And as much as, it caused devastation and loss of life, I don't want to like
Mm.
overshadow that or downplay that part,
Mhm.
because they were loved ones that I had that, are no longer with us. So,
Right.
we remember that part, but it forced me to just slow down and come to a
Mhm.
halt. And really,
Mm.
you can find like there's joy in like the ordinary things. I think
Mhm.
sometimes we want to chase like a high or an achievement or a goal. It has to be something grand. It's like, look right in front of you. Your loved
Right.
ones are healthy. I started doing puzzles and
Mhm.
playing board games with my kids and stuff. Little things
Right.
that, you kind of took for granted when you were just trying to run around and do a thousand things, when you
Right.
had the elements of joy and happiness and peace right there all along.
Right. And the simple things. Yeah, we were outside more than than ever.
Yep.
Just hanging outside, playing outside, watching the sunset,
Walks.
just stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff, the simple things in life. Yeah.
Going for walks, riding bikes, stuff I hadn't done
Mhm.
in years.
Right.
And it was just a lot of fun. Want to switch gears a little bit to what does it look like for someone who is like functional. I'm
Mhm.
laughing because I'm thinking about myself.
Mhm.
Functional, but are in dire need of like help. What types of things have you seen in the field where I don't want to say someone's delusional, but they're so focused on trying to outrun stuff that,
Mhm.
yeah, you are able to produce the fruit of your labor, but there's a cost. You
Mhm.
don't realize that it's going to cost you more than you ever thought.
Right. Right. No, I think the first part of helping someone like that is educating them. And I think understanding the cost. The example that comes to mind, my husband is a person who likes to pump gas before it gets to empty. Okay. Now I'm on the other side of that. I pump gas when it's on E and it's telling me I got 30 more miles to go. Okay. But one of the things I learned, Darius, that happens is when I allow my gas tank to get that low, the junk from the gas tank travels to my engine.
Mm,
And I know. And understanding that none of us in our cars wanna hear engine anything because you
right.
already know it's
Yep.
either gonna be a lot of money or you gonna be without a car. So, I said that to say that that's what I think about when I think about educating people to understand what it really is costing you.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking it's gonna cost me time to stop, right? Because I got stuff to do. It's gonna cost me time to
Right.
stop and get this gas. So let me just keep going. But what I also recognize is that it costs me because by the time I get to a gas station, I might have to pay more. So I live in Atlanta, which means depending on what side of the city you're on, you're gonna pay more for gas.
Mm,
But it also was costing me my emotional health because now I'm anxious. Now I'm
right.
overwhelmed. Now I'm worried.
Mm,
Listen, one time, Darius, I was on the highway in Atlanta, which you never should do. I had 9 miles to go on my gas, was left, and I needed to get two exits up on the highway, just two. But I was at the junction in Atlanta, which meant those two exits took
they
a long time because of traffic. And I'm in panic mode on the highway because I just know at any moment the car is just gonna stop.
right.
But I'm saying that about our mental health and helping people because that's
Mm,
what I mean about helping you to understand the cost. What is it really
yes.
costing you? And it may not cost you something today, but it might cost you something tomorrow or the next day. And I think sometimes that helps people to see how important it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So for people who you have talked to that have been like high functioning, I think it's almost like an addiction of hitting like a game winning shot. You're
Mm,
able to pull off so much and it's worked for so long that even if you hear that, you're like, man, I'm just gonna
mhm.
keep doing it, you know?
Right.
And then you find out it's like, oh no. Like I called, I don't know if you watched the Avengers movies, the
Not
different
much
characters.
of them. Mhm.
There's an evil villain, his name is Thanos.
Mm,
And like anybody else they fought in the movies, they were formidable opponents, but Thanos, like it took the entire team of good guys to take this guy out.
wow.
Right. And there was a point where there was an exercise that you were supposed to give your anxiety or whatever mental health challenge, you give it like a character name to kind of
Mhm.
refer to it to. I stopped doing that and I'll explain why later, but um, he pretty much with the snap of his fingers, like took out the half of the universe. And that was like part of
Wow.
his like evil plan. Like
Mhm.
everything living didn't matter here on Earth or any other place where it existed. He wiped them out in one snap. They turned into dust, basically.
Mm.
And
Wow.
that's what it felt like that somebody had snapped and like made half of me disappear, you
Mm.
know? Um, to the point where even when I would see him in the movies, like I could feel like this anxiety where I wanted to like physically fight him.
Mm.
And I realized I had to stop regarding anxiety as an enemy and look at
Wow.
it as a messenger to say, hey, what are you trying to get my attention about this time?
Right.
Because it's not just the circumstance, because usually when a circumstance goes away, those feelings in the body and the mind are supposed to subside. When they start running on automatic,
Mhm.
pointing to something like what is it? And are
Right.
you taking enough time to pay attention to that and recognizing if you can't recognize what that is, now it's time to ask for help. But I
Right.
guess the original question is like seeing like the high functional people. do you feel like they struggle the most because of the track record of success?
Mhm. I think it can be difficult, because you're right. It gives us an illusion that we're okay.
Yeah.
It gives us an illusion because the stigma, going back to the stigmas that you mentioned earlier, we have associated certain symptoms and looks and ways of being to mental health. And so when I don't look like that, then I'm okay.
Right.
But we understand, and I think there's been a lot more education on high functioning depression, high functioning anxiety, that people are now more aware of it than it would have been before. And so,
Yes.
again, going back to what it's costing you, while it looks like you're doing well, it's costing you your high blood pressure, it's costing you your digestive system, these things that we need to function. So, but the illusion of it can leave you in denial. Yeah.
What would you say are some of the top tools for healthy coping mechanisms that you could share with the audience? I know we talked
Mhm.
about breathing and some of the other ones. What are some that are not necessarily as obvious? Like for me, one of the things that my second therapist told me to do was find those things that like nourish your soul.
Mhm.
I started to do astrophotography,
Mm,
probably going
yes.
back 3 years ago,
Mhm.
which I mean, I took a physics class, but I definitely still wouldn't consider myself an expert. But there's
Mm.
something about looking at different planets. Like the first time I saw Jupiter through my telescope, like I
Wow.
had this feeling of just like peace and just connection with like something greater than myself
Right.
where I'm like, wow, I haven't thought about a single thing with work or bills or
Mm.
anything else that would normally just kind of be running as a background program, just always kind of tugging,
Yes.
throughout the day. Like I didn't feel any of that. And I was like, man, 3 hours went by and I'm just standing up here looking through my
Wow.
eyepiece, you
Wow.
know? So
I
that's one of
love
my tools in my toolkit is up, clear sky, moon's
Let's
out,
go.
or I know what time based on these little apps that tell you where the plants are going to be, like,
Nice.
situated in the sky. It's like, all right, point, there it is. Boom, take some pictures and process them on the computer. This is where my engineering part comes out, but
I love
uh,
it.
just something that made me feel really good and at peace. But what are some other
Mhm.
tools and things that you can share with the audience that would say this may be something you want to try as well?
Yes. No, I love that. I love that because it taps into another thing I would offer, which is nature. Get
Yes.
somewhere under the sun, okay? Under
Mm,
the sky. There's a natural rhythm that happens in nature. And
mm,
that's why when we as creation, right, we're a part of nature,
mhm.
we get in it, it regulates our system.
Yes.
So anything related to nature, most people will not have trouble resting, calming down, being at peace, being present, usually in nature. Another one, though, I think about is movement. We underestimate the power of moving the body. So there are
Yes.
times when I might feel restless, I might feel bored. Those emotional experiences for me can lead to sadness if I don't address them. I just start moving my body. I just find a way. And for me, music gets down into my soul, Darius. So all of that. And then I'm now lost in an experience, right?
Yes.
That has taken me out of where I was. So movement can be so powerful. I think about that. But I do think about what you said is doing something that makes you feel alive, whatever that is. Finding something that makes you feel alive, finding a way to give back. I know we oftentimes
Yeah.
overlook that.
Yep.
The two times that we feel most alive is when we're growing and when
Mhm.
we're giving.
Mm.
Find a way to do one or both of those things. Those are coping mechanisms that people don't often think about, but they're very powerful.
Yeah. I would even say with the giving part is the connecting with other people as well because
Mhm.
we have a group. Well, I haven't really been with them in a while, but we call ourselves the Astro Nerds. And I'm
Mm,
talking like every walks of life of personalities, races, genders, people who just because of COVID, we were kind of all bored. Like, all right, what else can we do with our time? Oh, we'll
right.
look at the sky. And then we all sort of found each other. And sometimes we'd go live. And if somebody,
Mm,
like, say, one of my buddies is in Southern California, he's looking at the moon from his location. I'm looking at it from mine, and we're airing
wow.
both of the screens at the same time, and just talking
Mm,
about kids' life and everything under the sun, almost like
mhm.
it's a live phone conversation. You almost forget that there's like hundreds of people listen to you guys right now. You better be careful
Wow.
what you say.
Wow.
It was just a good time because now it's like, hey, let's meet next week when Saturn's going to be at this angle in the sky. We can go
Mhm.
live and kind of share stuff to get it in, and different types of personalities would come out, and they're probably some of the most humorous, comical people I've ever met in my life. But
Wow.
one of the things is like it never just occurred to me that something like that would have that kind of effect. It was just more so I think I saw a $12 telescope at one of our little, it's not a dollar store, it's called Five Below. I don't know if you guys have those down in
Mhm.
Yeah, just it
Yeah.
was like a $12 telescope, and I took the kids outside. I was like, "Look, go check out the moon." Like, I had it in the back of my car, and I let them
Wow.
see, and they're like, "Oh, man, that's cool." And then I just sort of progressed and got, more sophisticated telescopes,
Nice.
and next thing you know, I was just hooked, and then I'm like, "Well, who else is out here doing this?" And when I found the group and we all
Mm.
made our different connections, we just had a great time, you know?
Yes.
Um,
I
but yeah,
love that. I love that because I believe in community and collective healing. And that's what I think you're speaking to. This sense
yeah,
of belonging, this sense of connection, this sense of safety is developed. And that is also soothing for us in our human experience. So I definitely believe in collective healing and community.
yeah. I think community is especially if you're an introvert like myself, a lot of times we don't wanna, like, share with a group or be around a lot of people. Not that we don't
Mm-hmm.
like people, it's just a little more draining for
Mm-hmm.
us. We have to kinda take some recharge time
Right.
after, I love to especially if it's people that I'm familiar with and I love, like, I can kinda be like an extrovert around those
Mm-hmm.
certain people, but you won't see me for the next few days because
Right.
I'm
You
just
had
like,
your
"All
cup
right, let me
full.
plug back
Yes.
into the wall and just sort of get
Right.
myself back?"
Right.
But that has been even some of the Facebook groups, and again, you have to be careful in areas where the people aren't, like, licensed professionals, right? Everybody's just kinda sharing their experience, so you don't take it, as, like, gospel that, "Oh, yeah, that's gonna work for me as well."
Mm-hmm.
And nor are people licensed to give that type of advice or diagnosis or treatment. Can't do that.
Mhm.
You haven't gone to
Right.
school for it. You haven't gone through the proper state licensure and training and requirements that says you are allowed to do this and commissioned to do this. So
Mhm.
you have to keep that in mind because I've seen some people share stuff. I'm like, yeah, that probably is true for you, but
Right.
good luck with that. I'm going to talk to
Right.
my therapist because I don't know about that one, you
Right.
know, or even it's probably the last area I wanna mention is medication. Huge stigma
Mhm.
around that. I didn't wanna
Mhm.
take anything, and I'm like, "No, that definitely means if I gotta pop this, I'm crazy, and I don't
Right.
wanna be associated with that, so I'm not taking it." But you have enough panic attacks and dysregulated sessions where your anxiety is heightened and high,
Right. You just wanna be better. Yeah, you just wanna be better.
gave me enough to do the work, and I
Mhm.
told my primary care physician, I said, "Listen, I know I have to do this now. I don't like it, but I know that it's necessary. I'm going to come back to you and tell you my progress so that we can get weaned off when you see fit. I'm not going to determine this on my own, but I will."
Mhm.
And one day I came in and I wasn't thinking to myself, okay, today's the day. I was just like, oh, I'm just letting you know where I am. And she's like, I'm not going to prescribe to you anymore. I was like,
Mhm.
why? It's like, you've over the last few months have shown me you don't
You
need it.
have it.
Like, now
Yeah.
I can, but from what I see, you don't need it anymore.
Right.
I had another anxiety about was it Dumbo that had the feather that he thought that was making him fly, and that
Yes.
he lost the feather, and it was like, "Listen, you had the
It's
ability to fly all along. You just needed a little help, something to kinda, get you going." So, there was
right.
probably a 4-week period where I was like, "Am I really okay not having this anymore?"
Mhm.
And it was a pretty mild one.
Mhm.
Like, it was so mild, I didn't need to be weaned at all,
Mhm.
but I was still kinda like, "Wow, now I get to really see who I am now without the crutches." But a
Mhm.
licensed person has told me, "I'm giving you an endorsement to go ahead and do this. And by the way, I'll be here if things do sort of
If
unravel.
they change.
But for now, you're ready and you can do it." And that gave me the confidence to say, okay, I can do this. And then next thing you
Mhm.
know, I never had to go back to it,
Wow.
because I continued to work. So,
Right.
but I had to get over that medicine stigma. And is
That
that something
stigma.
that you have observed as well, as far as like people not saying, just being gung ho about not taking a particular medicine or any type of treatment that would be helpful, but they're like, nope, not doing it.
Right, right. And I think listening and sitting with them to understand why before just telling them this is what you're supposed to do. I try to
Mhm.
sit with the idea of why is that present for you? What's coming up for you?
Okay.
But what I also say after we've done that is if this is something like a chemical imbalance, if this is a hormonal imbalance, you can't physically fight that on your own, right? I'm
Right.
just, trying to help them to see that if your brain needs support, if your hormones need support, we can't do that. You'll be
Yeah.
fighting an endless battle. And usually, if they're at a state of recognizing that it's not a personal flaw, going back to what we talked
Right.
about earlier,
Right.
it is something my brain or my body or, my hormones actually need support. Let's support that. And they sometimes will see it differently. Yeah.
Right. Right. Awesome. Well, I would love for you to look in that camera and talk to the audience who maybe is struggling, is considering therapy, but just can't quite cross the threshold, whether it be therapy or the medicine or even going to see their PCP, because I believe that's an also important element of
Mhm.
getting your blood work,
Right.
right? Finding out, is this a thyroid issue? Right?
Right.
Sometimes the root cause, I didn't have any trauma growing up. I wasn't abused, but yeah, buddy, your glucose levels, the A1C, it's kind of up there,
Mhm.
you know?
Right.
Your blood pressure, it's kind of up there. So we need to address those things as well. And it's
Right.
also pointing back to other issues that are connected to your anxiety. And oh, by the way, you take that story back to your therapist so that they have a better context around some of
Right.
the things that you may be dealing with so they can properly give you, some type of, treatment or regimen that you can use to recover. So what would you say to those who are on the fence about going to therapy and don't know what to do?
Mhm. Thank you for allowing me to share that. Because I think, as I said earlier, it takes tremendous courage to ask for support and help. So if you're feeling uncertain about it, if you're feeling afraid, just know that that's normal and that's appropriate. We feel that way when we're uncertain. And I like to do ands, not buts.
Right.
And you are worthy and deserving of being supported.
Mm,
That there is a level of suffering that you may very well be experiencing that with proper support, we can alleviate the suffering. And so find a good fit. I think I always share that therapy is like a pair of shoes, right? Every
mm,
size 9 does not fit my foot. It looks good, but it doesn't fit my foot. And so if you've tried it before or you're uncertain, knowing that there potentially is a good fit for you, and that may take a little time and that takes a little energy. Well, when you find the good fit, when I get my right shoe and it feels good on my foot, listen, I'll wear that shoe down
right.
because it feels good and it's supportive for me. So I just wanted to encourage you if you're there, that all of that is okay and you still can choose to move forward.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I wish I had heard that 6 years ago. I probably would have not procrastinated going to therapy. So we are at the point in the show where I have the guests go through what I call a quick fire round. It's
Ooh.
composed of 10 questions that involve your favorite this or choose between this and that, is meant to be fun, not deep or a gotcha or anything like that. So just something to have the audience get to know you, and I may laugh at some of your answers if I relate to it or whatever, but it's a lot of fun. So, all right. So we will start with number one, sunrise or sunset.
Ooh, sunrise.
All right. Facebook or Instagram.
IG more lately.
Okay. Okay. Who is your favorite musical artist?
I don't have a lot of favorites, Darius, but the first person that came to my mind was Lauryn Hill. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Cooking at home or eating out.
Cooking at home.
All right. Apple or Android.
Apple.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Would you rather take notes on paper or type in a laptop?
I'm a notes girl, paper girl, all day, every day.
Okay. Solo trip or group travel.
Mm. Imma say group travel.
Okay.
with the right group. Let me specify, with the right group.
Definitely. What is your favorite movie? I'll
Ooh,
say one of, because that's a tough one.
I know, but I don't have a lot of favorites, but the first popped in my head was Enemy of the State. I watched that movie over and
Okay.
over and
Yeah.
over again.
Classic.
Yeah, yeah.
Classic. What current book are you reading or have finished reading?
Gosh, and I love my reading books. I'm trying to think of the last one that I read. Ooh, I can't think of the last one. A book that pops into my mind that I love is It Didn't
Mm.
Start With You.
Okay.
It Didn't Start With You. I'm a self-help girl.
Yes. Yes. Lovely. Well, Natalie, thank you for being on the show. This was an absolute joy just hearing all the information and insights and experience that you shared with myself as well as the audience.
Mm.
The last question I have for you is where can we find you and what is next for you? Whether it's books, speaking, teaching, coaching.
Yes, thank you, Darius. Thank you for allowing me to be here and share. You can find me on all social media platforms as Natalie Warren. I tell the story. My name is unique, so it's Natolie. On all social media platforms, it's Natalie Warren. What's next? What's coming up? Wellness retreats around the world. I get to take women to create transformation through travel. So wellness travel is healing. And so we're going to Morocco, Africa. I have a retreat
Hey,
in Georgia,
all right.
and then being pulled to Portugal. So we're also looking at Portugal for 2026.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, there you have it, folks. Lovely episode once again. I love having guests. I think I may never go back to the solo format unless I have to fill in gaps. All the information that Natalie shared about her whereabouts will be listed in the caption wherever you decide to watch this, whether it's YouTube, iHeart, Apple, whatever your favorite podcast app is, it will be listed there so you can find her and follow her and all that good stuff. So we've come to the end, and you know my slogan, find your recovery path. Till next time, thank you for listening. Take care.